Well, George Louca has repeatedly stated that he would spill the beans about Lolly Jackson's murder if he's given proper protection.
But the National Prosecuting Authority will not comment on whether their key suspect is negotiating a deal with the state.
Louca was successfully extradited from Cyprus after a protracted court battle. He arrived in South Africa yesterday. We cross now to Karen Moen, who's at the Kempton Park Magistrates Court, where Louca will appear this morning. Good morning, Karen. What are we expecting to happen in court today?
Well, this is going to be a very brief court appearance. We know from the Hawks' Paul Ramaloko saying that George Louca will be charged with the murder of Lolly Jackson. He could potentially face other charges. At this point, Uveka, we're not aware of what those charges are. But this is really a procedural thing. It doesn't necessarily indicate that the National Prosecuting Authority will actually fully prosecute George Louca for Lolly Jackson's murder. We know that investigator Paul O'Sullivan, who has been working on this case for quite some time, is adamant that George Louca was in fact not the person that killed Lolly Jackson. In conversations with myself and other people, he has repeatedly stated that he was at his home, his rented home in Eden Glen, which is of course just a few kilometers from this court where he will appear this morning. He was there when Lolly Jackson was killed, but he was in the presence of other people who he says attempted to force him to drag Lolly Jackson's body out of the house and made him open the garage door. Apart from that, Uveka, he says his involvement in the killing was nothing.
Karen, do we at this stage have any idea who the alleged real killer might be? Has he given any inkling over the past few years? We know he's been fighting this extradition for about 3 years or so. Has he in that time mentioned at all who the real person might be?
Well, when I first interviewed him, I asked him quite specifically about speculation that Radovan Krejcir was in any way involved in this particular matter, and he denied it. He, at that stage, was very close with Krejcir. In fact, he told me that he was only speaking to me because Krejcir had said it was okay. Now, we know that there was, and Krejcir himself said to me that he had attempted to persuade George Louca to come back to South Africa. Of course, there has been rife speculation that somehow Radovan was allegedly involved in this. He has categorically denied that, but given the kind of level of intense pressure that's been placed on him and the very quite strident campaign that the police and the National Prosecuting Authority appears to be mounting against him, we definitely expect that that will be one of the crucial questions that he gets asked if indeed he agrees to cooperate with police. We know that Paul O'Sullivan and a number of other people have stated that one of the people who was at the Eden Glen home when Lolly Jackson was killed was, of course, Cyril Breaker himself, murdered not long after that, literally a month after that. So those kind of questions are going to be crucial, but it has become apparent in certainly my conversations with George Louca that he does not say that this was a hit. He says it was an accident, it was a fight, an altercation that went too far, and that there was no way that this was a concerted effort on the part of those involved to go out to deliberately kill Lolly Jackson. So whatever he says to the National Prosecuting Authority in the coming days, if indeed he decides to talk, will be absolutely fascinating.
And very coincidental, Karen, if we have to say that this is a time when George Louca was fighting, has been fighting this for 3 years, and from what we understand, that all of a sudden has now voluntarily decided that he will come to South Africa at a time when Radovan Krejcir is behind bars as well. It makes one wonder about the wheelings and dealings that might be going on behind the cells.
I think that there is a major push on the side of the police and the NPA at this point, and certainly I think it has been quite a profound confidence booster for some of the people who may or may not be involved in this alleged criminal underworld, that they, that Krejcir is behind bars. The third time really lucky for the NPA and the police. They have twice failed to bring any kind of substantive case against him. He was first accused of faking insurance fraud. That case fell apart without him even having to testify or a single witness being led. The same scenario when he was charged with armed robbery. We now see him facing a kidnapping and assault GBH attempted murder case. And he's staying behind bars. He's been refused bail by 2 courts, and I don't think it's coincidental that at this stage George Louca decided to give up on his fight to stop his extradition, has come back. I think it's also very important to remember, Uveka, that he has run out of money and that perhaps financial support that he was receiving from certain quarters is no longer available to him. And that may be a very real part of why he is now back in South Africa.
Now, he also stated fear for his life in that fight when he was fighting not to come back to South Africa. We know we had issues with Radovan Krejcir during his court appearance not too long ago. What's security expected to be like this morning, Karen?
Well, the Hawks have gone on record and said they don't feel the need to really up their security at this stage. I'm very confident that, in fact, George Louca will be safe. I think it's also important to note that, within the police, a lot of the apprehension, certainly that was expressed to me from some of the people involved in this, about talking about some of these activities, was the speculation or the impression that Radovan Krejcir had a number of, crucial contacts within the police. And certainly those kind of statements being made in a very overt way by forensic consultant Paul O'Sullivan, who says that a number of police officers should face prosecution for their alleged links to the underworld. Now, Krejcir has denied that. We have, however, seen, Uveka, 3 police officers, among them a very senior crime intelligence officer, being arrested for involvement in an alleged plot on the investigators in the Krejcir case. And I think that the police feel that they are within their own ranks doing everything they can to find and to prosecute and to take real profound action against people who may even be slightly linked to underworld figures. And I think that kind of confidence, the confidence that they're now expressing, may be coming from that attitude.
So the plot thickens. Thank you very much. Our reporter Karen Morn ahead of the court appearance of George Louca this morning.
Know more about your world.
enca.com